G'day. What is the best grandstand to watch an F1 race from? As an F1 photographer, I go to all races, I walk every track, and I've seen every grandstand. So let me run through what I think are the 10 best stands on the calendar. I'm going to start at number 10, and I've picked São Paulo outside turn 1. This is at the end of a long straight. They've worked their way up from turn 12, where they've rounded that at 125 kilometres an hour. They hit 315 kilometres an hour and then back to 105 with some heavy braking to make that left-hander. In the dry, it's fantastic, but in the rain, it can be absolutely mind-bending. It's certainly seen some amazing incidents over the time, and the fact that you're so close to the action, there is not a huge distance between those front rows and the catch fence. You also see them coming towards you, to your left, and then you get to see them going down the hill away from you to turns 2 and 3. Now, I should say that I've ruled out grandstands on pit straight. Yes, they're fantastic because you get to see the start and the finish. Plus, you've probably got a view of the podium. But in this video, I wanted to look at stands that gave you a bit more than just cars zooming past. There are 24 races this year, and I've picked just 10 grandstands to focus on. At number 9, I've picked another old school type track, this one being Barcelona, and I've picked turn 10. Much like São Paulo, you get the cars coming from your left, taking a sharp left-hander and then heading, in this case, slightly uphill to the back of the track. So you get a broader view of what's going on. The stand itself is nothing special. It's pretty much just seats. And a lot of what you're going to find here in these reviews are pretty basic sort of seats. But at turn 10, it's not uncommon to see an overtake because the previous corner is not a particularly slow corner, so they've worked up a fair bit of speed. It is a sharp left-hander, and overtakes and incidents are not uncommon here. And much like Brazil, you get passionate fans around you. Perhaps not quite on the scale of those Brazilians, but certainly it is worth a look. The track itself is about 30 minutes outside Barcelona, where I am at the moment here under sunny skies. At number 8, I'm going to select the stadium in Mexico City. It's a unique spot because there is no other stadium quite like it in F1. The cars come in at a particularly slow speed. Chances are you're not going to see any overtaking. Yes, you will be sitting on planks, and you're probably better off bringing your own cushion. But in terms of a spectacle and being part of a race, this is incredible, especially when Checo Perez enters the stadium, and especially when he enters during qualifying. I love shooting in this stadium, and the other bonus for you is that you get to see the podium. This is a bizarre situation that the podium is so far away from pit lane, and you get a DJ at the end of that race, you get the crowd flooding onto the track, and in terms of a spectacle, it is something special, and you will shiver when you're in there and you hear those cheers go up, especially for Checo Perez. Now, for almost all of the grandstands I talk about here, you'll be outside in the elements, so you will need a bucket hat. And the first run of my bucket hats here sold out way quicker than I thought. So I'm considering doing another order. If you missed out and you'd like one, simply go to kimellman.com, go to the shop or click the link in the description and register your interest. Once I get a certain number of registrations, I'll place another order and I'll go back to all of those people who have registered and give you the opportunity to place your order so you don't miss out. So once you finish watching this video, click on the link and register for the second drop of these bucket hats. I've just got back from Montreal and I've picked as my 7th most popular stand, the stand on the outside of turn 2. Like the other stands, this one gives you multiple angles. And of course, in the wet, as we had on the weekend in Montreal, you get to see cars tiptoeing around, making mistakes. Pierre Gasly going off into the grass as he was coming back on after a pit stop. You get to see the tightness of cars like Lando Norris coming out against Max Verstappen late in the race. Plus, you get a great view of the start because you get 2 corners, 1 and 2, both visible. At number 6, I've picked Monza, and I've picked turn 1 on the outside. Monza is a super fast track. Does it not have the highest average speed? I think so, certainly close to it. The cars come from your right, they come at high speed, and you've got a very good chance of seeing an overtake or even an incident. I've seen plenty there. The most memorable being the time that Lewis Hamilton has ended up with Max Verstappen on top of him. You can't predict that sort of stuff, but if you're on the outside of turn 1 in that stand, you've got a great chance of seeing something amazing. And after the race, you can get onto the track and join the throng for what is probably the greatest track invasion we see in our sport. And you can't discount the passion of the Tifosi. If you're not of Italian descent and it's your first time at a race and you pick turn 1 on the outside at Monza, you'll be blown away by what happens post-race. Next up, we're off to the beautiful mountains of Austria. Spielberg is the region. We're heading to the Red Bull Ring, and I've picked the grandstand on the outside of turn 3 for you this time. It's just the most beautiful place to go racing. Turn 3 is at the very top of the hill. You get to see the cars coming up the hill directly towards you. They have to brake heavily for a very sharp right-hander, and then you see them going away to your left. We see a lot of overtakes up here. We see a lot of incidents. And most of the time, the weather is good. And on top of that, when you get back to your hotel, you can have a beautiful schnitzel, an Austrian Wiener Schnitzel. The only drawback with Austria is there's not a great deal of accommodation around the area in terms of high quality stuff. But if you love camping, you can get yourself a tent pretty much directly next to the track, and then it's just a walk up to your stand. Oh, and the other advantage is if you want to meet a driver, this race is a good one for that, because like Melbourne, they have a walk. It's normally done on the Saturday and Sunday. All the drivers are asked, but don't have to, walk the green carpet. And if you're there early in the morning, you can get a great vantage point right up against the fence, and you'll have a great chance of meeting your favourite driver and perhaps even getting an autograph or a selfie. All of these grandstands I'm talking about here are certainly going to cost you money, but the next one is probably one of the cheaper options on the calendar. I'm talking Suzuka, the outside of turn 1. This is a very old and very basic grandstand, but the view it affords you is something spectacular. Yes, you get to see the start where the cars come flying towards you, then take that long sweeping right-hander before heading into the S's and then out to the back of the track. Granted, you're not particularly close to the action like you would be, say, at the end of turn 1 in Brazil, but if you're at the top of that stand, you will get the most magnificent panoramic view of what is, I think, probably the greatest track that we race at in terms of action on track. And you'll get to be amongst some of the most polite, colourfully dressed and beautiful fans, those being the Japanese. I'm a big rap for the Japanese Grand Prix, and on the other side of the track too, you'll be able to see the remnants of Sebastian Vettel's B project, which come next year's race will be about 2 years old. I'm down to my top 3, and do you have any idea what my number 1 is? I do. I wrote this thing, so I think you're going to be excited to find out. But at number 3, I'm heading to Austin, Texas, at the Circuit of the Americas, turn 1 outside. This is another grandstand that gives you a sweeping view of a lot, if not all of the track. You'll get a bird's eye view of the start. They'll race up towards you and then take that hard left-hander. Often we'll see incidents there at the start, and if not the start, certainly during the race, you'll see plenty of overtakes. And it's not too long of a walk to where I do a meet and greet, which I'll be doing again this year at that track after FP1. And it's probably my most, well, certainly equal with Melbourne, my most attended meet and greet. So I'll look forward to seeing some of you there after FP1 come this year's race. 2 to go, and next up I'm going to pick Monaco. And I've picked Grandstand T. Why? Well, it gets a view of the track below, and you'll get to see the cars coming out of a swimming pool, and they'll get very close to the fence on the outside. They'll then come past you, but then you also get a bonus view looking into the pits. And if you've got binoculars, you'll see all of the action from your spot in the stand, particularly if you've got a seat at the very top level. You're also in the shade, and when you head downstairs, you walk out the back straight onto the harbour. I'm a big fan of this stand, and I'm also a fan of the Monaco race, greedily for perhaps my purposes, photography-wise. But look, I think you'd love it. And when would you need to book seats typically to get them? Well, given the popularity of Formula One now, you almost need to be booking the moment they come online. And even then, people who have purchased tickets in that stand previously often get first chance at them again. So if you can make that decision, say, a year out from a race, I think it's well worth you getting online and buying those tickets, because you won't be disappointed with Monaco Stand T. And finally, my number 1 grandstand for watching an F1 race is without doubt the top of Eau Rouge. This is the gold Eau Rouge grandstand. It's only a couple of years old, and it affords you one of the most spectacular views in motor racing. Have a look at what you can see here. From the exit of turn 1 right up to Raidillon, you get a bird's eye view of what's going on track. You can see the overtakes as they get to Eau Rouge. You can see them climb the hill and speed away to your left down the Kemmel Straight. In my mind, there is no greater corner in Formula One than this, and I've stood down the bottom and I've seen those cars rip past just metres from me at crazy speeds, and I can tell you, it is absolutely frightening. So you won't have that terror that I have when I'm standing down the bottom, but you will see so much action lap after lap, and you'll be sitting there in comfort, particularly when it rains if you're up the back of that stand. And on top of that, the walk down to the fan zone is just a few hundred metres. If I wasn't able to stand trackside and get the most amazing F1 experience, I'd be looking at this stand every year. Whether or not you can get a ticket there, I'm not sure. Maybe you'll tell me in the comments, but if you only could go to one race and you could only get one grandstand, I'd be picking this one. So here are my top 10 grandstands in Formula One. Hopefully that's given you a few ideas about where you can watch an F1 race from on your next venture out. A reminder to click on the link in the description to pre-register for the next drop of these bucket hats, and for a whole lot of other merchandise and content, that's where you need to look. Thanks for watching and stay passionate. Is it turn 9?